Good afternoon, ParisWHO teams. Congratulations on finally getting these delegations passed, and I'm sure that you've had a an amazing past couple of days being able to get these resolutions passed and navigate a very challenging topic of climate change and mental health. So now we're almost at the finish line on this final day of this event and trying to be outwards and future looking. We need to be optimistic, right, about addressing this topic of climate change and mental health. And as future public health leaders, no matter where you move forward in your career, it's going to be important that this particular topic is not niche. So I'm looking forward to having this conversation with our speakers who I think are on. And I would like to be able to pose some questions to them. Let me see if I can just, give me one moment here. This is the thing with doing things live. So Suzanne and Pascal, either one of you can start. Why don't you tell us a bit more about how do you see climate change and mental health factoring into your own career and current role?
Suzanne, you want to start?
I was about to say, Pascal, after you. First of all, Charles, thank you. Thank you so much for hosting us. And everybody, this was fantastic. Congratulations to all of you. That was so professional and so exciting. I wish I could have been there for all of it with you. I really think, first of all, Charles, I mean, you teed this up saying that you hope that we're going to be optimistic. I hope all of you feel optimistic as a result of the discussions over the last 2 days. I absolutely feel optimistic looking at all of you. And I really think that it's the young people who are going to, young professionals who are going to make the difference for all of us and turn this around. So I think that mental health and climate change are, of course, inextricably linked. And, just as so many of our really complex, substantial health problems, these all sorts of things that are affecting people's abilities to enjoy good health and well-being are linked with climate change. These are really all parts of a system of social determinants of health that are interlinked. So I think that for Pascal, I won't speak for you, but I suspect we, all of us would agree that we really have to have a systems view to all of this and look at this all holistically. And that's what public health encourages us to do. It encourages us to take the population perspective and to look at all of these interrelated social and political and economic and biological and organizational conditions that collectively affect our ability to be healthy, and that includes, planetary health. So mental health is absolutely connected to climate change, and all of these things are interlinked with each other. You can't affect one without affecting the other. So I guess I'll just start by putting that on the table.
Pascal?
Yes, thank you. Well, first, I'd like to thank you all for inviting me to speak during this session. And since I was a little bit early, I attended your vote and the last amendments and really, I mean, it feels it makes me like Sue was saying, hopeful for the future. I mean, to see all of you dedicated to finding solutions and finding agreements on those complex issues. I mean, as a disclaimer, I would like to say that I'm not a climate change expert, and I'm neither a mental health expert. So my expertise lies really on infectious diseases and its epidemiology. And as a matter of fact, as you can imagine, I've been working a lot on the COVID-19 crisis. And because I've worked on that and collected some data, it happened that I collected data also on the mental health of students, and it gives me some inputs regarding this particular issue. And to me, this COVID-19 crisis is really an interesting example of how we, I mean, as the people, as a planet, can deal with a major crisis. And it illustrates that when you look at this mental health indicator, that in the end, the solutions to the crisis may have an impact on the mental health of the population itself. And that's what we've seen for during the COVID-19, for example. I mean, you've all experienced to some extent lockdowns, and we have, maybe I will share with you some data on that, on its impact on mental health. But it's a good illustration that a crisis, causes, public health issues like mental health issues, but sometimes also the solutions to the crisis causes troubles. That's why it's a very difficult matter, and that's why I think it's a good illustration, and we need to get the lessons from this crisis and see how the lessons that we get can be applied to this other major challenge, which is climate change.
I just wanted to interject there because I paid attention to two things that were said, with Sue talking about mental health being a social determinant of health issue, and you, Pascal, prefacing that you're not a climate change or health specialist. And I think that this is the issue that we have, right? Everything seems to be in these silos, and we seem to see things as being disconnected, right? There is no good health without good mental health. We cannot have good climate without ensuring that health is a part of that particular issue. And I know that coming back to the Bahamas, and along with my work, when we had a hurricane, one of the strongest hit our country, it was young people that came together to make a climate crisis declaration. I was a part of that group, and one of the things I was insistent on is that we include mental health in that particular component, and resilience being an important component, and the importance that we pull together people from all sectors of society in order to address that issue. We had fisher persons, we had scientists, we had teachers, we had doctors, and pulling them together because all of us come in our unique perspectives around climate change and mental health. And I agree with both of you. Seeing the young people on here today brings me hope. This isn't my first WHO simulation, and I see some familiar faces as well. So I really hope that they feel encouraged to pursue this particular pathway as well. Perhaps talking about youth, I wanted to ask the both of you, how do you believe that we can become more effective youth advocates for mental health and climate change from a public health perspective? And what do you think are some of the biggest challenges that we've faced in this journey?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, Charles. Thank you. And I think that, you've just given a good example of it. I think that youth have to be visible, number one. What you've done now over this 2 days with, ParisWHO, you've gotten together, you are collaborating, you are networking with each other. And, I think that's really, really important, to be visible and to be out there, because when you do, you're not only speaking truth to power, so to speak, but you're also giving courage to others that may have been a bit more hesitant to step up and be heard. And so I really think it's important, that you are out there visible, that you find each other, that by being visible, you are also making yourself available to others out there, and potentially helping the network, to grow and be even larger. So I think, I think that's it. Get engaged. I think just, these old cliches about showing up as, half the battle, or is the whole battle. It's that sort of thing. Be active, get experience. This experience that all of you are having through ParisWHO, this is great diplomacy experience. And, so I think that is also important, but just looking for ways to engage. I think, these are excellent first steps, because once you get confident, once you develop a network, more opportunities will arise where you can be effective and make a difference. And the more people who think like you do, the more power you will have collectively.
Pascal?
Yeah, of course, I totally agree with Sue. Maybe I will add that, again, from the experience that we've had with the COVID-19 crisis, it's the importance of data, of observations. It's in the end, it's really when, unfortunately, when something gets real, that people realize, and sometimes too late, unfortunately, but still, it's never too late. But it's when the problem is really becoming visible, that people tend to change and do something. It's true for vaccination. It's true for changing our behavior, etc. And I think it's also true for climate change. And I think that the more we are able to document the negative impact of climate change, and the more data and solid scientific data, and we already have a lot of this, but maybe the more we manage to communicate on this, the more the easier it will get, to engage people into this, to working for this big challenge.
And Pascal, could I add
No worries at all.
Oops, sorry.
No. Go on, Sue.
Yeah, could I jump on to what you're saying about communication and say I so agree with you, and I also think that that's why it's so important for everybody here to be really honing your leadership skills, and that includes your communication skills, because many of these people that you're going to be trying to communicate these messages to and influence over, to your side, to our side, to follow through on some of these policy changes that are so needed, the Paris Climate Accord and so many others. You've got to be able to talk to people who don't think like you do, and who may not hear words the same way we do. You've got to be able to somehow in communication bridge, that gap, because this is, we really are in a time where there's a lot of polarization all over the world. So we've got to speak effectively, not only to each other, and those of us who, are sort of on the same page where all of this is concerned, but we've also got to somehow effectively reach those whose interests are at odds for whatever reason with our goals around climate change. So that's a specific kind of skill that all of us in public health, no matter which discipline you come from, all of these silos, Charles, that you mentioned, we've got to come together and integrate across those silos, but we've got to learn how to send messages effectively. And, again, that's a whole other skill. So leadership training is something that all of us need to keep at, because it's one of those things that we get practice. With practice, you get better, but none of us, including some of us who have been around for a while, we have to keep on learning. You never stop learning.
I completely agree with that, Sue. I feel like even though it can seem like, yes, it's a simulation. Yes, you've had some fun here today. You'll be very surprised some of the skills that you take out of the simulation and how they roll over into a real world context. Absolutely. I've had the opportunity to speak with different members of different embassies and high commissions. Oh, and being very careful about what you say and how you say it, and framing what is it that you want, right, as a country and as an individual. And I say this to all of you who are on this particular event today. If you feel like a space isn't made for you, create your own space. If you haven't been invited to the table, build your own table. It's important that people see this, that you're not a token addition to any type of policy interaction going on. That it's important that you feel empowered and you find a way to bridge those gaps in communication. Because optimistic, yes, but time is also short as well. So we need you all to step up in that. I want to go back to something that I noted. Pascal, do you think you can share a little bit about your research around that mental health, around mental health and COVID-19 impacts? I think it was being done around students in Rennes, correct?
Correct. Yeah, actually, well, what we did in Rennes was trying to better understand how people were getting the virus. That was our main objective. And when I say people, we were really interested into students, because we were seeing that universities were getting shut down, and it was the same thing for schools, etc. But when we discussed with field epidemiologists on the ground, we realized that actually students, they were not really. There was no real proof that they were getting infected. At the university itself, but it was more during activities outside the university. In bars, pubs, apartments, and things like that. At least what was the initial report. So we decided to set up a large study in 3 universities in Rennes, and we collected data on a little bit more than 1,500, I think, students at first, and because we were also hearing reports about mental health issues that happened during mainly the first lockdown, and this study was performed. We were preparing this study during the September last year, so we decided to add a few standardized questions regarding mental health issues, and we were quite surprised by the results that we got. We had a comparison point because we had performed this mental health assessment 4 years ago on roughly the same students, and And regarding, for example, psychological distress, we had something like 60% of the respondents, and they were quite a lot to respond. I mean, 60% of them who reported psychological distress, while 4 years ago they were only 34%. So almost twice the level of psychological distress that they had before. We also collected data on symptoms of depression. So it's, I mean, the more severe type of psychological distress. And 23% of them had symptoms of depression. Anxiety was quite widespread, since 40% of them had symptoms of anxiety. And overall, 1 out of 2 students who answered were telling us that they felt lonely, that they had some feeling of social isolation. And so that was quite worrying. So of course, this assessment is only an assessment. I mean, from a particular point of time, it was right after the second lockdown in France. So it doesn't mean that their mental health will stay like that, and that those issues will not resolve with time. But it clearly shows that I mean, the measures that are taken to fight the COVID-19, and particularly in the measure that tend to reduce the activities of the students to change their normal life, they have an impact on their mental health, and this clearly needs to be taken into account. It's what is troubling is that it's why do we see that, and if we the question that I'm asking, and I'm putting this on the table, I mean, for discussion, is it because the change is too brutal? Is it because there's no replacement of activities that are given, or there's no alternative somehow to the social interaction that students could have before, and that they could not replace, that we see those really alarming numbers? Or is it because I mean, because of something else? And the question is, if we think about climate change and the fact that, I mean, in order to fight against climate change, we will have to change our behavior, maybe reduce our activities, or change the way we interact with others. I mean, traveling less, for example, or traveling. I mean, being a little bit more less dispensable about our mobility. I mean, the question that I'm asking is, I mean, will we see? Is it possible that we see the same kind of impact for when we try to apply those, I mean, this type of measures for students, and maybe for the rest of society, and maybe we need to think about it as well, and think how we can keep the mental health indicator high, you know, in a good level, while changing the behavior of the population.
Okay, thank you so much, Pascal. I know that we're getting ready to wrap up soon here, but Sue,
yeah,
I'm hearing from you.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm listening. Pascal.
Pascal's research was really. Hello?
Oh, sorry, Charles. I don't know if it was me or
Yes.
you, but it felt like it was something was breaking up here.
Okay, okay. This is the technological divide. I think it's probably a good
Yeah.
way for us to segue a little bit into hearing from you, Sue. I know that we have 8 minutes. Why don't you tell me a bit about how technology can help or hinder the impacts of climate change on mental health? I know that I can talk a lot about that from being from the global south, but you go ahead, Sue.
Yeah, I think of the positives, Charles. I mean, you're talking about being from the global south. I think even in rural parts of the global north, poor parts of the global north, where technology brings greater access to education, to many people. There's one example I can think of. But we think of the global south being poor and the global north being rich, but actually there's a lot of income inequality all over the world. And so even in economically developed countries, there's a lot of income inequality, and that income inequality translates into poor health for some, and others get lucky and have access to any health care they want anytime. So Pascal, in hearing what you were just saying, I was also thinking then about how in the policy realm, I do think we have to really get serious about looking at how we live, how some live, and how it impacts the way others can live. And that some are going to have to be willing to give up a little so that others can have enough. And so I think that wealthy countries and wealthy individuals are likely going to have to curb some of their habits in order to make it possible for more people to live in reasonable conditions. So I think this is where the politicking comes in, and differences of opinions about governance systems. And but I think if we look technology is one segue to this, but not everybody has equal access to technology. And when it comes to healthcare, mental health care, our economic model does not afford everyone equal access. So I think we do need to start looking at redistributive policies that help to reduce inequality by distributing resources more equally, more equitably. And so I think in part, this is, we get technical, talking about economics, but there's this, sort of a neoliberal approach to economics that one could say has also become a pandemic and is influencing policymakers, and in a way that makes it more difficult to approach climate change and make the strides that we need to make. Likewise in healthcare, including mental health care, these privatization of things that should really be seen as common goods is another one of these issues that's complicated. So it's not easy to communicate to the average person, but we've got to do a better job of conveying some of these principles that are really, really important if we're going to make headway around issues like climate change and mental health and healthcare for all. So I'll just leave it there.
Well, thank you so much, Sue. I had so many other questions I wanted to ask you all, so many more, but I think in this last 4 minutes, why don't we say about 1 minute apiece? Any final advice or outlooks that you've observed in the field of climate change that you would like to provide to all of our listeners here on this call? Maybe I'll start with you, Sue.
Everything's connected. I don't care which thread you pull, all of this is connected. So keep the big picture in mind, and you never ever forget the system view. And so you can pick it up at any point, there's something for everybody. If you're interested from the climate angle, or you're interested in from the mental health angle, there's enough work for all of us to do. But remember that it's all connected. Over to you, Pascal.
Thank you. No, well, my final piece of advice would be, keep going. Keep going forward. Don't get desperate. You need to be hopeful, because the work is hard. But as much as I want you to keep going forward, my advice would also be to not forget to look to look from time to time from the experience of the past, and take every opportunity to get the learnings that we can get from what you've experienced, from what others have experienced, and do not repeat the same mistakes. And again, I'm maybe a little bit biased toward COVID-19, but I think that this particular crisis, will give us material for learning for years to come, and we need to again, in front of such a challenge as climate change, we need to get every opportunity to learn and to build on science. So yeah, keep try to take every learning that you can, and keep going forward.
Okay.
And thanks to each and every one of you for doing what you're doing. This 2 days has been fabulous training for all of you. And I know that every one of you is going to be going forward and making your contribution to making it a better world. I
agree with that. I definitely agree with that. And Sue, Pascal, thank you so much for joining me in this conversation. And I'm sure everybody took a lot from this. I'd just like to add, just before we close, I'm going to be dropping several links in the chat for those of you who are interested in pursuing more work around climate change and health. I'm dropping a link to a climate change and health research conference that's happening in October. The links to the pages for those of you who are interested in being involved in the youth and climate change space. I'm dropping links to the youth constituency, to the UNFCCC. There's lots of opportunities to participate as a representative, to attend conferences, to be involved in drafting policy papers that go to COP, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm also going to drop as well information to the Lancet Countdown, WHO Climate Change and Health Profiles, and my social media contacts, because there's not enough time to go through all of them. So thank you very much for having me and for having us here to communicate. Thank you, and enjoy the rest of your conference.